I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that. But the connections run deep. Yeah, the connections run deep in America.
Yeah, this mom is very powerful, as we know, and they were actually in charge of the 9/11 and the whole 9/11 operation to bring down the Twin Towers. So,
now, when did you learn about that? Did you learn about that when you were in the Monte Carlo Lodge?
Yes,
inside
I know
talking?
about that because in the Monte Carlo Lodge, it was a guy, Comandante Balistrieri was always making himself very great with the fact that he had wrote Defensive Strategies for Terrorism, a booklet by him prior to 9/11, like he was a great prophet. And we were all taking the piss out of him because we knew that he knew. So that's why he had wrote about the subject, you understand?
Yeah.
And he admitted that in front of the brothers, and obviously he admitted being part of the Gladio project, which was a few years prior used during the Cold War.
Yeah, you know, explaining your words, we'll get back to 9/11 in a moment, to American listeners who don't understand what Gladio is all about. You know what? We're going to take a break, okay? And that music caught me by surprise. So anyway, we're going to come back. Guest is Lyon Zagami, a former Illuminati insider. And when I say insider, I mean, boy, high level and information. We're going to get into, I'm going to save that 9/11 discussion for the next segment after the short break at the top of the hour. But one program note I wanted to mention, I'm back on RBN, and I wanted all my listeners to know I'm also on 12.180 shortwave, so you can listen to me from 11 to 1 every day, and now on RBN. Leo, explain to people what Gladio really is.
Gladio is a state-behind operation constituted of a secret police that comes only into action when the threat of communism during the Cold War was around the corner. But obviously the threat of communism was created by themselves, so we can say that the whole thing was a setup in the first place. They just accumulated a bunch of weapons and they created this network so they could manipulate the whole of Italy as they wished. And they created also to implement this strategy, the tension part. The tension part was brought by the use of bombs, by the use of terrorist attacks, by the use of very vicious plots, like the ones that saw Aldo Moro killed, or the bombing of Bologna, Piazza Fontana. I mean, all these bombings were created by the American intelligence and the Vatican on Italian soil to manipulate the Italians, because they said, first we start with a small country like Italy, and then when we have the system well together, we will implement it on America. So that's why it reconnects to 9/11. But going back to Gladio, Gladio is basically the Vatican arm of terror. It's the NATO Vatican weapon of terror, because it constitutes of all generals, of people who are very high in the intelligence services, and it has always the top SMOM operatives ready to implement whatever is the strategy of Gladio. And Gladio,
so Italy basically was used as a test country. America deeply involved in the terrorism there, and I remember that back in the 80s when I lived there. I happened to be there when Aldo Moro was killed, and I call him the Italian John F. Kennedy, and it's just amazing, and I want Americans to understand.
For example, you were talking about Pat Robertson earlier on, and I tell you that is really a sign of Gladio-style operations. First, they come up with somebody who comes up with a great threat, and in this case, the Pat Robertson apocalyptic way, and then after they implement the threat when they need to put major control over that country. America is still not under their complete control, and also I have doubts they want to reach the next elections. They want to install this dictatorship before the next elections. So it's possible that within this year, 2007, we will see some major attacks. So they can justify the replacement of all the current laws with a totally martial law. And this has to be very well in the minds of the people, because Pat Robertson is an agent of the Illuminati, and he works for these people.
Okay, listen. Great information, Leo. We're going to take a short break, about 2 or 3 minutes, come back, and we'll be back with Leo Zagami on the Investigative Journal. And we are back, second hour of the Investigative Journal. And, Leo, I wanted to mention this. You know what? Americans are struggling. They're like walking in the dark going, well, 9/11 occurred. We know it was an inside job. And they always, who did it? And I was trying to tell them, there's a connection here between not only people in America, but worldwide. And I think this is a good example. How did you find out, when you were in Monte Carlo Lodge, tell us a little bit about the inside talk about 9/11.
Well, we talked about it immediately because then we had to make plans for what was to happen after. And I can tell you also the very interesting thing that an FBI warning came 24 hours before to all the grandmasters involved at security level, and that the CIA was doing this operation. And so the grandmaster, actually Celestino Zuccotti, who I interviewed lately, had admitted for the first time also himself, outside of the P2, also other grandmasters knew about the 9/11 happening 24 hours before it was taking place. And this is a news that no Freemasons in America knows. So Freemasons out there in America, wake up. These are 33 degrees. Celestino Zuccotti is a famous 33 degree. He's saying to you that the 9/11 was an inside job. So wake up. He's a guy, he's 60 years old, he's not young as me. He has also the degrees of 33, 90, and 97. So he's quite high in the degree system. And also he's a personal friend of the Dalai Lama. So, and he said it's an inside job. So I want people to understand that we are now on the verge of a critical time in which not only we will know that the people on top are lying, but they will openly lie in our face even more and more until they will implement the martial law, and at that point they will not need to lie anymore. At that point,
that's a good point. Yeah.
At that point, they will tell you the truth, and the truth is that you are puppets under them. And once they microchip you, they have you under their, basically you have them under your skin. So what can you do?
And I think here in America, a lot of times people think, well, there's not going to be another terrorist attack. They're just going to go away. It's not going to happen, is it, Leo?
I tell you that this Pat Robertson warning is very worrying and very disturbing, because such an agent is not activated if he's not terribly sure what he's doing, because he has a lot of followers out there, and they need people like him to stay credible. So what they're going to do now is to implant people with this belief on an apocalyptic scenario in the year 2007. So if it happens, then people will definitely have a sense of, oh yes, Pat Robertson was saying the truth, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, wake up, people. There's no hallelujah here. This is a situation, yes, hallelujah you can say in the next few years when you're going to be fronting the coming Armageddon, because this is an apocalypse scenario that will find yourself basically in front of something that will never happen in a civilization before. The collapse of the economic system, the collapse of the military system, and of the religious system. This is something that can only lead to chaos on a massive scale. And that's why even Pat Robertson is doing this, because they want to save their ass, sorry if I say that on the radio, in some way or another by doing these predictions. But then they want to bring upon them this martial law to protect themselves. Because if they can't protect their pedophile rings, and they can't protect all the systems of power right at the top, which have been lying to humanity for so long, it's 2,000 years of lies we have here. And from America we have, not even 300 years,
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to continue. Let's take a short 3-minute break. We'll be back with Leo Zagami on the